Karen Young here from Property Zest, and I'm here today to talk to you about a recent case study that we have for Surge, where we bought a property up in Mackay. I'm just going to walk you through how the whole procedure went working with Surge and what we ended up purchasing. Surge is an engineer. He works as a contract engineer on some government projects at the moment. He lives in Melbourne, and he's married to Bron, and they have 3 children, and one on the way due in May of 2013. Now, Surge and Bron have their own principal place of residence, but they also have 3 investment properties. So Surge and Bron are not new to investing. They've worked really hard and had some, negatively geared properties and worked hard to get those to a point where they're almost positive now. And they've also built some property. So basically, what they were looking for when they came to Property Zest and came to me is basically they have no time. They knew they want to invest again. They knew it was going to be interstate, and Serge just didn't have the time. He's working really hard in the day, coming home and helping out with the kids and all that sort of stuff, and it's just flat chat. So he decided that he was going to engage a buyer's agent. He'd used a buyer's agent previously, and he decided he's going to use a buyer's agent this time around again. Now, we had a discussion about the brief. What is it that we're looking for? And the purpose of determining what your brief is that you need to make sure there's a shared understanding between the buyer's agent and the customer about what you're looking for. So I wanted to make sure that I understood Surge's requirements and that we were both really clear on what it was that we wanted. And what that does is it obviously makes sure that we're on the same page, but it also makes the search process incredibly more efficient and effective if we have a honed in target. Now, Surge started out with the following buying criteria. He had a budget, he said, of 300 to 500k. And we were going to focus initially on the lower end of this range because Serge wanted to see if he could follow this purchase up with a second property reasonably quickly. And he'd already been doing quite a bit of research, and he decided that Mackay was the spot that he wanted to invest in. And he also knew that he was interested in, new or old houses or units. He didn't actually mind any of those things. All he wanted was a reasonable rental yield. It needed to be neutral to positive cash flow in a good position that would be sought after by tenants. And that was a buying criteria. And as you can see, that sort of brief is quite a wide brief. So it was clear that what we needed to do was some location analysis. Now, Mackay is a big place. So when you decide upon, investing somewhere, I'm going to invest in Melbourne, or I'm going to invest in Mackay, or I'm going to invest in Toowoomba, those places are large. And there's a lot of suburbs involved. So Serge knew this, and he knew that, getting on the internet and just looking at properties in and around Mackay was very difficult if he didn't have an understanding of the location itself. So what we first did was undertook some location analysis. Now, as I said, Mackay's a big place. It's about 337 k's north of Rocky on the east coast of Queensland, and it's got quite a large population, over 112,000 there at the last census, and that's a fairly big regional town. Now, the good things that Mackay has going for it is it's got quite a diverse economy. There's coal mining is a large part of the region now, and it's obviously big mining ports there. There's agriculture, particularly with sugarcane in that area. There's education is a big factor around Mackay. There's universities, there's schools and things like that, so that's a major employment industry. There's also a degree of tourism up there as well. Lots of facilities and services in Mackay being such a large regional centre. There's shopping centres, there's, as I said, universities, there's schools, there's medical facilities, large hospital, etc. So big place. And what we needed to do was really hone in and nut out what it was about the various areas of Mackay, where it was that we could go to that would give us the best bang for our buck. So on the ground up in Mackay, we did a lot of location research, and we presented our report back to Serge so that he could get a better understanding and we could refine that buying criteria. So we looked at everything from the primary economic drivers, we looked at the population, we looked at growth, we looked at regional industry and economy factors to determine what made up this location. And then we looked at the types of dwellings in Mackay and the various locations. We analysed probably, I think, about 18 suburbs in depth. We drove up and down every one of those streets, it feels like, and really mapped out where were the, what sort of dwellings were in what sort of locations, why were certain pockets more popular than others or showed better growth or showed better yield, what types of dwellings would be in each type of place, who was it who'd be living in those, and we analysed each and every one of those areas and presented that report back to Serge so that he would understand it as well. We then suggested target areas based upon our discussions previously, and we provided even more detailed information on those, all the numbers, the growth, the yields, the vendor discounting in the area, the vacancy rates, all of that sort of stuff, and the types of dwellings on those suggested target areas. And then we had some discussion points. So once we presented this report to Serge and he'd sort of digested the material in it, we sat down together again and discussed via Skype or via phone, I think it might have been, discussed where to move from here. And the outcome of that is that we were able to now really narrow in our project brief. So we revised our buying criteria, and Serge had decided at this point that he wanted to buy something up in the 450 to 500k mark. His target suburbs were Glenella, Andergrove and Beaconsfield, and he wanted something new to near new, 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, a family type home in a family type area that would show good sort of demand by tenants, and really good depreciation he was after as well. So as you can see, that exercise of just doing that detailed location analysis and discussing it together really helped hone in our buying criteria to a much more targeted focus. And that makes the actual, at this point, we haven't even looked at a particular property. But what you can see is all of that work really will mean our property searching and our property inspection process will be so much more targeted, because we just, we know what meets the criteria and what doesn't. So what we did, now that we understood our very targeted criteria, we hit the net, we hit the phone, because we'd established very good relationships with the agents up there in Mackay after spending so much time on the ground and going out and visiting all the agents there. And we got our list of all of the properties that were on the market at the time, and we could filter out all the ones that didn't meet our criteria and really narrow down to the key prospects of the area. We spent 3 full days inspecting properties. I think we probably inspected about between 20 and 30 properties, and we presented 3 of those properties as standout properties for consideration with Serge, and we discussed those by presenting to him all of the facts, the information, the numbers, the locations, all of the photos of the property, and the cash flow situation, all of that sort of thing. Now, we also, on those 3 properties, we were doing further due diligence. So we'd be looking at rental yields, rental appraisal, past recent sales in the streets, the immediate location, looking at flood maps, flood regulations for building in the area to make sure we're compliant. We've got insurance quotations to make sure that our insurance costs would be an acceptable level to us, and we looked at council plans for the area. So there's a lot of research that goes into this. The actual property, Serge is quite a decisive guy, which is very helpful, because straight away he knew which one of those properties he wanted to target first. So we picked out a property in Glenella, which was a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, brand new property. It had been on the market for about $560, and it had been recently dropped to $530k, and Christmas was just about to come up, and we knew that we're probably in a good position to try and push for a good price here, because the vendors really wanted to offload the property. They'd undertaken it as a project to build it and then sell it, and they didn't want it sitting on the market for a long period of time, and they knew that probably with Christmas about to just around the corner, they would be faced with probably another 3 or 4 weeks on the market at least. So it was a good location. It had tenant appeal, and it had significant depreciation benefits, which is exactly what Serge was after, and that's why he wanted this property. We ended up, after looking at our research, we offered $507k, and we offered a larger than normal deposit to try and make that lower value that we were offering more attractive to him. It was subject to finance, building and pest inspection, and our offer was accepted, which was great news for Serge. And this is the property here. It's a brand new property, as I said, and you can see that it's had some landscaping. It's got letterbox, it's got TV antenna, all the little things that you don't realise if you're buying a new property. Some of those things are not often not finished off, but this property was sort of turnkey, ready to go for tenants in the door. And there's some property shots of the interior of the property. In terms of the numbers, running it through our cash flow situation, we put in some values. We had some rental appraisals up around the 550 to 650 mark, and we ran a couple of number scenarios on it at the 550 and the 600 mark. And looking at that based on the level of depreciation that we'll be getting and the expenses associated with the property. Now, these figures here are based on 100% lend, so we're assuming here that we're borrowing the full value of the property or using equity as a deposit, which is borrowed funds as well. And it comes out at about the $550 rent per week. It came out about $25, $26 a week negative, and at $600 a week, it came out about $1 positive. So that's pretty much where we were aiming at, pretty much neutral for Surge to be able to hold that property in a good location with good tenant appeal and potential for growth. Now, once we went into that settlement period, we're under contract, and that was fantastic, but the work was not done at that point. We had a lot of work to do. We had the solicitor review our contracts and conduct property searches. We had building and pest inspections arranged. We had the finance side of things. Serge was arranging that through his broker that he'd used previously, and I was onto him quite a bit, making sure that was all going on. We got a lot of insurance quotations following up on the ones that we did previous to making an offer. We got further insurance quotations. We got a quantity surveyor quotations, and Serge selected once again a quantity surveyor that he'd used previously to do arrange that depreciation schedule. We interviewed a series of property managers, and we ended up appointing a manager who was then focused on getting a tenant for us. So there's lots to do in that settlement period, and settlements up in Queensland can be very fast. This one I think was 35 days by memory. Or 45 days, but 35 days is pretty much the average up here, so it can be very quick, particularly for people who are used to the southern states where it's 60, 90 days and things like that. Things happen fast. So what's next for Serge? Well, he's going to let the dust settle, and he's looking to purchase again after about 6 months or so. I've just recently recorded an interview with him for the Everyday Property Investing podcast. So as soon as that interview's up, I'll put a link to it beneath this video, and you can check out the interview and hear from Serge how he found the experience, his background as an investor, how he found the experience of using an agent to purchase property, and what his plans were for the future. And he shares also his top tips for investors who are starting out. Well, I hope that you enjoyed the case study on purchasing property in Mackay for Serge. If you'd like help with your investing or just want to discuss buying property in Brisbane or regional Queensland locations, then don't hesitate to contact me. All of the details are on the screen there. You can check out our website at propertyzest.com.au for more details, and I look forward to speaking with you.